Hello, and here comes a brand new feature, and this is a video you won't want to skip. Every month I'm going to be doing my best to keep you up to date with the important information pilots need to keep abreast of. Regulation changes, airspace news, licensing information, medicals. Basically all the stuff you really must know about but find it incredibly hard to find or consume. We'll break it down and keep it simple. Welcome to the Flying Reporter Pilot Briefing. Coming up in this episode, we're going to look at what the UK CAA proposes to do to make pilot licensing simpler. What you should do if you're refused access to a piece of airspace or denied an air traffic control service. We'll also decode the new format of ATIS broadcasts and inform you about some recent changes to radiotelephony procedures in UK airspace. Buckle up, news you can use, incoming. The Flying Reporter Pilot Briefing is brought to you in association with Astral Aviation Consulting. Astral is the company currently working with the CAA to provide free safety resources and workshops for general aviation pilots. First up, licensing. And the UK CAA has been looking to see if there's a way to simplify pilot licenses and training. It's just published CAP 2532, which follows on from a public consultation on the subject, and the programme is now moving on to its second phase. But why the need for simplification? When the UK left the EU, we came out of the European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA. And if you had an EASA Part FCL licence that had been issued by the CAA under the old system, it's now automatically become a UK Part FCL licence. This is of course unless you changed your state of licence issue. All this has resulted in a two-tiered system for GA pilot licensing. Licence based upon the European system and licences based upon national regulations set out in the Air Navigation Order 2016. This includes pilot licences that don't meet ICAO standards and recommended practices and are designed for flight in UK airspace only. These are called sub-ICAO licences. So we have a situation now where people can have one of many different licence types that have varying privileges, different restrictions and contrasting training requirements. But they can often fly the same type of aircraft. An example, if you have a UK Part FCL licence and you want to fly aerobatics, you need to undergo specific training and obtain an aerobatic rating. However, if you have a licence issued under UK national regulations, you don't require a rating, nor do you have to undergo any formal training. In terms of licences, we have the sub-ICAO licences such as the NPPL and LAPL, and two flavours of PPL, one a UK national PPL from the old days and the other a Part FCL PPL which originates from the EASA system. Confused? Well, that's the problem. It is confusing. There are something like a dozen licence and medical combinations to choose from. And another aspect of the system we currently have means that it doesn't really allow for a sensible training progression from say a LAPL or MPPL to a full PPL, or the addition of useful ratings such as restricted instrument privileges. So the CAA is looking at changing things up. Instead of maintaining the current system with the likes of MPPLs and LAPLs, it's looking at the possibility of introducing one new sub-ICAO licence called the PPL Lite for both fixed-wing and helicopter pilots. Generally, the feedback from the GA community supports all of this. You can read the full responses to the CAA consultation in CAP 2532 on the CAA website. Next, have you ever been declined access to airspace?
Gatwick have just been given restrictions due to an issue and they won't be giving any crossing zone clearances of any description.
I think in my 10 years or so of flying, I've been refused access to airspace about 3 times. Not a bad record. And on a couple of occasions I've been refused an air traffic service, often because of controller workload. Each time this happens, we are encouraged to file a report to the CAA. The regulator has just issued a reminder to pilots telling them how they should do this. There's an online form, FCS 1522, the UK Airspace Access or Refusal of ATS Report Form. The CAA says that pilots should make a report so that the regulator can get a handle on the frequency and reason for such incidents. They say that feedback is shared with various teams in the CAA and the Airprox board. The regulator says that the data is used to make sure that airspace is serviced as it should be. Now, whenever I've filled out the form, it does appear as if it's gone into a black hole. There was never an acknowledgement or a reply. But the CAA says the forms are read and a lot goes on behind the scenes. They say that pilots often do get a reply. Just me then. So next time you'll refuse that controlled airspace transit, fill out the form and let me know if you get a reply. Next, ATIS broadcasts have changed.
Time 1031, runway news 22, runway 22.
What you're listening to there is an ATIS broadcast. ATIS stands for Automatic Terminal Information Service, and it's a recorded announcement on an aerodrome frequency, detailing the runway, weather, and pertinent information for pilots. Now, you might have noticed that some of these broadcasts have got a bit longer these days, and it can take quite some time to listen right through to them. Here's one I recorded at Harden in North Wales just last month.
Runway condition codes 6, 6, and 6. Dry, dry, dry. Depth not reported, not reported, not reported. Coverage not reported, not reported, not reported. Transition level, flight level 60.
This ATIS broadcast is using the new global reporting format. But why the change? And what do all those codes and terms mean? Well, the whole point of the change was to standardise the assessment of runway surface conditions, to reduce the risk of runway excursions by helping pilots make better assessments of the effect the conditions will have on their landings and takeoffs. So when you tune in to the ATIS now, you might hear a runway condition code numbered from 0 to 6. And there's a separate number for each third of the runway. So if you hear 666, means the runway is dry throughout its full length. If you hear the number 5, that section of the runway is contaminated, such as being wet or frosty, for example, but braking action is good. 4, there might be compacted snow and the temperature well below freezing, but braking action is good to medium. 3, the surface is contaminated, braking action medium. 2 could mean there's slush or standing water, braking action medium to poor. 1 means the runway is contaminated with ice and braking action is poor. And 0 means that braking action is less than poor. When you hear the words coverage in the ATIS, that's the percentage of that third of the runway that's affected by the surface condition. Depth, that's the depth of the contamination in millimetres. And the type of contaminant would be reported as dry, wet, slush, snow, and so on. If you want to find out more about the new global reporting format for ATIS, look up CA publication CAP 2174. Now you know what those codes and numbers mean. And finally, there's been a recent tweak to CAP 413, the fabled radiotelephony manual. It's to take account of the use of flight information displays by some aerodromes and flight information services. These displays can improve situational awareness and reduce the risk of collision, infringements, and controlled flight into terrain. But because these systems don't have the same level of integrity as the radar systems and displays that major airfields use, there's now a new set of phrases that units may say when making use of information that they see on those displays. There's phraseology covering flight path monitoring, the provision of navigational assistance, and enhancing the provision of traffic information. So, for example, you might now hear phrases like all stations, Trumpton Tower, traffic believed to be 3 miles east of Trumpton, tracking westbound. Or multiple aircraft believed to be operating at Trumpton Lake. Or traffic believed to be you has traffic converging from the north, indicating 2,000 feet. The full list of the new phraseology can be read by looking at CAP 413 Supplementary Instruction 2022/02. Well, that concludes our very first Flying Reporter pilot briefing. It's good to have you along. And if you found the information useful, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel so as not to miss the next one. And do please share the video with your pilot friends and social networks as well. I'm sure they will appreciate that. Before we go, a quick reminder that I'll be at Aero Expo at Sywell Aerodrome in June. I'll be doing meet and greet sessions every day of the event at 1:30 in the afternoon. So make sure you get your tickets now, details on the screen. I'll be flying in, why don't you as well? The Flying Reporter pilot briefing is brought to you in association with Astral Aviation Consulting. Check out their website now for links to information I've shared here today and other free pilot resources. Thank you so much for watching. Fly safely, my friends.